Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. It's half an hour before kick-off. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm joined by Sean Connolly, all the way from Australia. It's a top-of-the-table clash, Sean, and that's quite a few weeks after we played Rangers. We are, of course, facing Aberdeen today, and the teams are out. What's your first thoughts about the starting 11?
Oh, starting 11, I was going to say top of table clash. First of all, it's very unusual. The only time we normally play Aberdeen tied at the top of the table is when there's 0 games played and we're up there on alphabetical order. But yes, the team's out. It's quite. I am genuinely surprised we have the same starting 11 as we did against Ross County, because let's be honest, that first hour of that game was pretty abject. So I don't know if they've just had a feeling that. They've had time to work on it over the last 2 weeks, or if Rodgers is saying it's not a case of one miss and you're out, you get a chance to redeem yourself. If it is the latter, then I think that's good man management, and I hope that those players do. And look, I have a kind of feeling that's kind of what's happened in the past. If you ask me, I've not really numbered this out, but if you ask me what my feeling is, it kind of feels like Rodgers gives players like 2.5 games before he really ticks them as off form. I feel like that was a thing with Turnbull last year, Hatate, players. O'Reilly never really got dropped, but it feels like when a player's kind of off form, they tend to get 2.5 games before they get called off form. And I think that's what's going on here, is they've had one game where Hatate's, well, actually this might be Hatate's third, but for Engels, it's certainly just one game. So he's getting a second one to pull himself back up.
Yeah, and I think it's fair enough without the knee-jerk reaction. We'll run through this team. We'll have a look at our opponents as well and the strength or otherwise of the bench. Ewan Boy Martin obviously has been on holiday, and he is telling us it's a surprisingly warm and sunny Celtic Park today. Good tests, but I am confident of a good win. 4-1 for the Hoops. Let us know in the comment section what your prediction is. I've already put mine out there. During the week, I reckon it'll be 2-1. It could be stuffy, says Mark Gordon. Take 1-0 and on to Atalanta. Let's start off with that subject then, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's in relation to the starting 11. No CCV, Sean. There was a suggestion that he might return for today's game.
It feels like even if he is fit, injury-free, for example, he's clearly not match fit given how long he's been out. So I think a top-of-the-table clash is probably not the best thing to bring him back. I guess the surprise is that he's not on the bench. To be fair, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Novotski's on the bench either. Is it Welsh?
No,
the backup
just,
back?
Yeah, Welsh has got the jersey on the bench.
So there's clearly he's clearly not ready then to play even 30 minutes. So that's interesting, and hopefully we'll see him back next weekend. But I guess that means he's not playing against Atalanta either. If he's not on the bench today, he's not going to be playing midweek. And then it's like we can say it's a surprise, but it's all down to fitness, and we can't see that. We can only infer that. So we have to take the word of what's probably been the first call of the health and fitness staff, and the second call of Rodgers just agreeing with them.
Yeah, I mean, Paul McLean comes in relation to Carter-Vickers and his omission today and says CCV equals Julien. Well, you know this, I think it's a slightly different scenario because Julien came in, didn't he only get one injury, Julien? And that was the one that more or less kind of finished him at Celtic. He played one game under Ange. The thing with Carter-Vickers is he's had some injuries, and I remember when we more or less wrapped up the title against Rangers, and Ange Postecoglou in the second season sent him away for that surgery, Sean. And at that point, you kind of thought to yourself, right, we've won the league, that's fine. We've got the cup final, we're against championship opponents, Inverness Cali Thistle, who are hurtling towards administration, it would seem, going by the statement. And, you know, we should have been expected to win that game. As it happens, Kobayashi played centre-half in the final, if you remember. And I hoped that at that point, whatever he was going away to get surgery on would have cleared up his injury problems. But it does have a season kind of hampered last season by injury, and it's coming to this season as well. When does it become a real concern in relation to Carter-Vickers? I know we've already brought in Trusty for 6. We had previously brought in Nawrocki for 4. Interestingly enough, he's not on the bench today, Nawrocki. But when does it become a real concern for Carter-Vickers at his age as well? He seems hampered by these injuries.
Yeah, I think it is a broad. It's a broad issue. I don't know if it's a broad concern yet, given his age. Just looking back over, we've been in the Champions League a few seasons now. He's played 9 Champions League games over 3 seasons. So what's that out of 13? So I don't think he's missed that many. But yeah, like he's not played that many minutes either. A few of those have been subs. So, you know, he seems to be there in March and April when we need him most, but he's not. He seems to be struggling to get back to it around about September, October. Yeah, I don't know. It's a squad game, is one thing I will say as well. Obviously, Carter-Vickers is, in my opinion, on form, the best defender we've got.
Agreed.
At the moment, I don't think he the way he started the season. I actually don't think he is better than Scales or Trusty. But I think if he works his way back, he is obviously better than those two. So I think this is the sensible approach, and probably even the best approach for getting a result today and Tuesday, Wednesday. I forget what day it is.
Wednesday. But the point you make is, I think, pertinent. We get into the habit, I think, Sean, of, right, you're the first teamer and I expect you to play 40 plus games a season. If you're Callum McGregor, you can play even more. And because we're always competing or participating in 4 different tournaments, you could play over 50, sometimes 60 games. Maybe we just need to realise that there are certain members of that squad, very important members of that squad, who might not play that amount of games. Tommy Rogic, for example, didn't always play 40, 50 games for Celtic, did he? I know that, I think in his last season, actually, and I'll check the stats, probably the most appearances, or up there with the most appearances he had made in a season for Celtic. So listen, if we get the quality of Carter-Vickers, but he's not playing the 50 games a season, I get it. It's just disappointing going into the top of the table clash in games against Atalanta without him. But the point remains, if you spend £6 million on a centre-half, he should be able to play against Aberdeen. And Trusty, obviously, is that man, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Julian, obviously, we spent 7 million on, and I don't know if we spent that much on any player apart from Raphael, expletive. Have we spent any more? Honestly, has there been a bigger outlay in a centre back between those 3? I wouldn't have thought so.
Until CCV and Trusty came along, you're right. That
CCV wasn't even. Oh yeah, CCV was 6 million as well. Sorry, yeah, that's right.
I'm trying to think, because some of the big guys we got pretty cheap. You know, we got Van Dijk cheap, £2.5 million. Denier, of course, on loan. I think his loan fee was a couple of million. Shane Duffy's was a couple of million. So you're right. In terms of an outlay, Julien's was massive. Carter-Vickers and Trusty's probably similar to each other. So it's a situation, I think, whereby Trusty, I think he looked good against St Johnstone. People questioned him against Borussia Dortmund, but again, listen, it's an anomaly, that game, because the quality of the opposition was completely different. I think today, coming into today's game, I'm pretty confident Trusty will be comfortable enough.
I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch against Ross County. So I am very confident having him today. And I think as much any concerns that we have today are reduced by 10 to 20%, given that we are at home. There is a home advantage, no matter what the bookies think. The bookies always have and continue to believe it is true that you have home advantage, and bookies are infrequently wrong, shall we say. So I think that having whatever concerns you have are mitigated. If this was a Pittodrie game, you might be more concerned.
Yeah.
And which is not to say it's going to be easy, but just, that 10% by having the home advantage does mitigate any concerns. And I do actually think Scales and Trusty were very good against Ross County. Oh, yeah, sure, it was the first goal we've conceded in the league, but we also conceded 2 against Falkirk in a cup game, which we were conveniently looking over in pursuit of this statistical record. But I think a freak handball penalty being the only goal we conceded is not a concern for the defence in terms of league games that we've played. So I'm happy with the back four. I'm happy with the goalkeeper. I'm happy with Callum McGregor anchoring those. I think we will not concede more than 1 goal today, and you can record that and play it back later. If we concede 2 or 3, I will. Oh, please don't. I'm confident.
Please don't. No, well, the thing is, I do think we'll win by the odd goal in 3, but I'm thinking about Scales, who, I agree with you, he's been the best defender this season, most consistent, no doubt about it. Gets a goal in the Champions League, man of the match performance in the Champions League, scores for Ireland. Things are on the up and the up. He's playing against his his former club, obviously, against Aberdeen today. And I think back to that Scottish Cup game, the semi-final last season, where we came up against Aberdeen and it took us to extra time, didn't it? And I think that when I was looking at that, they targeted, and a lot of teams did this last season, they targeted that left side of our defence with Scales and Taylor. I've not seen Scales being exposed as much this season in relation to it. It was like an obvious tactic, wasn't it, when you were playing Celtic, to attack that back post. Obviously, Taylor's out today as well, replaced by Valle, who came in, bizarrely enough, for a bit of flack against Falkirk after the game. But I think he's played into this team. And actually, and I know that some people blame him for one of the goals against Dortmund, I thought he was one of the guys I gave a pass to against Borussia Dortmund. I thought he played pretty well. What have you made of Alex Valle at left back? And of course, talking about fitness concerns, that's Taylor missing another game today, isn't it?
Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Again, goes back to it as a squad game, and our major concern before even I was going to say before the season started, but 4 or 5 games into the season, our major concern was we have one left back, and here we are, heavily relying on the loan player that we brought in, because the one left back we had is now injured, at least putatively. And yeah, I think Valle obviously had a little bit of a physical struggle in that first game against Falkirk in his debut, but he showed enough. Apart from he got caught out twice, but other than that, he did show enough defensively and a lot offensively, and he's shown a lot offensively since as well. A lot of people had him as a shout for man of the match against Ross County. He was everywhere, up and down, tireless, and I think he showed a lot of improvement defensively as well. So actually, the funny thing is, you're talking about targeting the fullbacks. I'm looking at the Aberdeen lineup. I don't know if you got it handy. I don't like. I'm ignorant in a sense. I've not seen them play yet this year. I've just been kind of tracking it in the highlights and the commentary, but I don't see a winger in their team. I believe that McGrath plays in the wing for them, but to me, he is not a winger. He's a converted centre mid. So I'm not actually sure where the threat in the wing is. I don't know that that's the style they play. I don't know Nielsen. I don't know Keskinen very well, so I can't comment too much. But to my eye, they don't have the same kind of wing threat that some teams do. So I think Valle will be okay defensively.
Yeah, and the thing with Valle, because he's obviously in on loan, without that option to buy, doesn't necessarily mean we won't buy him, Sean. But without that option to buy, it does seem as temporary as loan deals often are. And people are obviously raising the fact that Greg Taylor hasn't signed that new contract yet. After January, he's free to discuss a term or a deal with someone else. The other left-back situation that we have is with Bernabe, who you're kind of guessing will leave come January. I think will be easy to do a deal with, Internacional in the Brazilian divisions. He apparently is playing pretty well over there. So it does, strangely enough, leave us with this one left back again. On the bench, of course, you've got Tony Ralston, who has been deployed at left back before. Adam Montgomery, who can play at left back, hasn't featured this season. And we've had those perennial links with Kieran Tierney. So I think moving into January, it's another position that we'll probably look at. But I have been impressed with Valle, and I think you're right against Ross County. Going forward, he was brilliant. He was excellent going forward, cutting the ball back, hitting the line. And I think that, defensively, he might have got a bit of a wake-up call against Falkirk. Brilliant. What a time to do it against a team that we were going to be strong enough to overcome. And then he gets a bit of fright. He knows, right, this is, I need to lay down my stock early here. In a game, I know people are going to try and get in about me. And I think, going back to a point that we made when talking to John Hartson, who in actual fact was on This Is Acsom last night, it was about the physicality of a clutch of these signings that Brendan Rodgers has brought in from, and it's like a spine of the team. You've got Schmeichel, Trusty, Engels, and Ida, all big physical players, athletic players. And you look at Valle, and I think that he's got a lot of physical development to come. I think back to Tierney as a young kid. He didn't really have that. He come back from a pre-season one time and he looked absolutely ripped. He had put on quite a bit of muscle. And I think that Valle is the same. He's got that to come, isn't he? But he does look, upper body strength, he does seem to have a bit of that.
Yeah, it's funny. Football's changed a lot, right? 20, 25 years ago, you couldn't rely on your physicality and your athleticism. You really had to have some ability, and nowadays it feels like it's reversed almost. Like athleticism and physicality will get you a lot further than ability these days. See Ollie Burke, for example. Poor guy. Don't want to pick on him.
Scotland's most expensive footballer of all time.
Exactly. Don't want to pick on him, but his athleticism far exceeded his footballing ability. And, the counterpoint, see Paddy McCourt for, if you could take Paddy McCourt and, God, man, I feel like 2 days in a row I'm talking about Paddy McCourt. Someone's going to say I'm obsessed. If you take Paddy McCourt and Ollie Burke and squish them into one player, you've got Cristiano Ronaldo, and that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays that's kind of where we're at now. Paddy McCourt would get nowhere these days. Players like Ronaldinho would probably not get a game for Barcelona these days. So yeah, you have to wonder. That's just how football is. And as you mentioned, if these players can get their head right, then it's almost not irrelevant, but less relevant how good they are footballing wise.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and there's nothing wrong with bringing up Paddy McCourt 2 days running. Listen, I'd speak about him all day long. I'm going to bring in some of the comments here. The first one, Scott Melville brings up, is a bit of an early 80s throwback today. It feels like a really big game. We were chatting earlier on the group, Sean, in relation to, right, this game's sold out, and, that there aren't that many tickets available because we've got something in the region of 54,000 season ticket holders. So during the campaign, you do see the announcement that a game's sold out quite regularly. And obviously the Rangers games sell out, Champions League games sell out, Flag Day, wrapping up the league, Trophy Day, that kind of thing. So over a season, there's quite a lot of games actually officially sell out. But because we have this kind of old-fashioned system whereby, we've got a waiting list, and at the moment it's closed and you can't get on it, we have no way of gauging how many people would have bought a ticket for today's game. So obviously there's a capacity, right, and it's sold out. If we had a proper ticketing system whereby, people were making inquiries about tickets, and those that weren't able to come to the game could perhaps resell their ticket, etc., like a lot of sports grounds are doing all over the world, we could maybe look at today's game and go, you know what? We might have sold 70,000 for today, or we might have sold 65,000 for today. And then when you go into the Rangers game, you're maybe going, by the way, we would have sold 80 or 85,000. European game, who knows? So at that point, the club can genuinely say 8 times a season we could have oversold our capacity by this amount. It is going to be worthwhile, redoing that main stand. But we don't have any of these systems in place, do we?
No. And I'll tell you what my gauge is. Every time I come back to Scotland, I can't get a ticket. And sometimes I can get a ticket. Actually, sorry, I guess I'm telling a lie. I'm able to get an individual ticket at times, but I want to go to the game with my dad. And the last 2 times I've been back, 5 to 6 games within that time frame, not been able to get 2 tickets together at any time within that. And I'm sure I'll have the same experience when I come back in December. It's just simply not possible to get 2 tickets together. So that's a pretty good gauge for me, and I'm actively trying to get tickets. I travelled in a supporters bus to Tannadice and stood outside, the £30 in the air, whatever, try to get in. And me and my dad are sitting in different stands to watch Celtic Dundee United. So that's pretty much where we're at. There is absolutely, in my experience, there is not enough supply to meet demand. And as you say, that could be quantified. And a lot of teams do this resale thing. I don't know why we're not doing it. Apart from the fact that it gives quantification for the demand, it also fills the stadium on the match day. We don't like those empty seats. We want more atmosphere. We want more people there. We want more Celtic to sell more pies, for example. It makes too much sense, Paul. You have to keep that quiet.
Too much sense.
Like sense talk to here.
You're right. They call it average revenue per punter, isn't it? Every bum on a seat will spend X amount of money inside the football ground over and above their ticket. And like you say, having those empty seats does not make sense. Ian Roy, thank you for supporting the channel, and I hope you and everybody else over in Florida are safe and well, my friend. Now, Paul Hogan, greetings from County Clare and Ireland. That front six looks good, 3-0, says Paul. And we've also got Claff's 1978, good year that, 78. Think Scales will have to step up and be the mature older head in the back four today alongside AJ Hail from Corby. What do you think of the backup then on the bench in terms of the defence? Because we've got Tony Ralston, we've got Stephen Welsh. We don't have a backup left Tony obviously will come on right or left. Scales can play left, apparently, left back. But Nawrocki, a wee bit like Odin Holm, just slowly but surely edging closer to the exit door, in my view, Sean.
Yeah, he is. It's interesting because you really want to go with 4 centre backs as a big team. You need 4 centre backs that can come in, and yeah, I mean, I guess we're saying that Welsh is 4th based on today and the last few weeks, and that's interesting to me. I get that Welsh is older than Nawrocki, but to me, Nawrocki is more physical and has shown a bit more, not much more. So I wonder, like just marginally more, in my opinion. So I wonder if Welsh gets the nod, being Champions League squad considerations. Yeah, I think that's probably a thing. If you want to get in ahead of Welsh, you need to be more than just level pegging with them, or more than just getting paid more money than them. You need to, Welsh is going to be a better squad player for Europe. We don't want to be a man down in terms of the squads. Yeah, I think that's probably more to it than anything. But yeah, maybe, I guess Welsh played fullback at some point when he was younger, so maybe he is the backup. But also Ralston can play both sides really in a pinch. So yeah, look, I don't think too much about the defensive depth when we're playing a home game, even though we are playing the team that's second in the table.
Yeah, and of course, moving into midfield, big discussion through the week in relation to who you pick. Basically, Luke McCowan was getting a lot of suggestions. A lot of people saying that he should have started. I myself had gone with McGregor, Engels, and Bernardo. I think I dropped Hatate. Hatate makes it. He is a game changer, Sean. And of all the midfielders, he's my favourite player in the midfield. But I don't think he's had the consistency this season.
Nah, he's been struggling mentally, I think, to focus in games. The first couple of games, he looked up for it, and then he's kind of dropped off. I feel, and I've heard some of the stuff he's been saying about, or I don't know if he's been saying it directly, but it's been coming out in the media about the traveling he's doing internationally, where he's traveling around the world but not playing any minutes, and I wonder if that's getting to him as much as I hope it's that, and not that he's discontent about being at Celtic, because he does seem to be mentally a bit off it in the last few games, and I hope we've got another international break next month, don't we? I'm honestly sick of these. This September, November, October international break thing does my head in, and we're probably going to not see the best of Tati today because he's just come back from traveling around the world. And then we're probably going to have the same problem again in November with him having played no minutes for Japan and just been on lots of flights. So I am surprised and concerned, and I'd be surprised if Hatate lasts past 60 minutes today. And I would also be surprised if he contributes anything in terms of goals or assists. But I hope I am wrong. I really do. I like him in terms of ability. On his day, he's an amazing player. He could leave now and be a legend for the 2 goals he scored in the derby and many other things he's done. So I'm definitely not writing him off. I do like him, but I'm concerned about his current form, his current focus, and all the stuff, all the traveling he's been doing with Japan.
The big thing for me is you get, I moved to Celtic, and there's a lot of people, and I think it will actually work in McCowan's favour this season, where you get your international recognition. And Hatate, you kind of thought, with regards to Maeda being in and around the squad at that time, Kyogo was too, and I know he's been left out, that he could start building his career. But, if you're an American international or a Japanese international, and you're doing all that travel basically for a training camp. It's like a training camp with your international team. You're watching a couple of games. I think Trusty got 7 minutes of football over the 2 games for America. Hatate got 0, didn't get a kick of the ball. So you're traveling all over the place. And it's just, I get that there's a camaraderie and you've got to try and build that team spirit on an international level. But I do think it affects the club form of the player. We talk about fatigue. Traveling, it doesn't matter if it's cattle class or first class. There's a fatigue about actually flying, the process of flying, and especially when you're in the air for that length of time. So I hope it doesn't affect them too much. And I'm the same as you. I'm sick of these international breaks, and I want us to just concentrate on this. Now, John Kerr, Valle is pronounced Valle. Thank you, John.
I've heard that, but I'm really struggling with it, to be honest.
I know. I wanted us to sing into the Valle, the old Skids song, but unfortunately, John, we're going to have to change that. Ian Royce says we should have an 80,000 all-seated stadium. I remember someone raised this at a fans forum. I think Declan McConville was at the fans forum, and the feedback that was given was that it would cost something in the region of, was it 100 million quid, something like that, to redo the main stand, and it would only take our capacity up to 72 or 73,000. That was the kind of figures that they were talking about. So it would take a few seasons to pay it back. I would love to see Celtic with a bigger stadium. I would love for the stadium to be all on the same level as well. If we go up top, the top three, I'm looking at Kyogo, Maeda and Kuhn. For me, strongest top three we've got in the squad. But again, I'm looking at that bench and I'm saying we've got three wingers on that bench. We've got Jamesy Forrest, Yang and Palma. And this isn't an opportunity to have a dig at anybody, but Yang and Palma haven't contributed for me this season. And it's about time that a game like this could be very stuffy, 60, 65 minutes in. It could be nothing each, Sean, and we need somebody to come in and make that change. If I'm looking at those three wingers, the first guy I'm going to is James Forrest.
Yeah, and there's no reason why you wouldn't, to be honest. Forrest has contributed coming off the bench. Palma started, I can't remember what game he started, but Falkirk? I don't remember.
Falkirk, yes.
Yeah, yep. But he's been getting it tight from Celtic fans. He's been getting it tight from the Honduras international manager. He's getting it from all ends at the moment, and he's doing his Todd Cantwell thing on Instagram. Not that's a bit harsh. It's not that bad, but he is pouring his heart out onto Instagram, which nobody likes to see. In terms of fans, we like to see players get their head down and do it on the pitch before they do it online. So I do worry about his future. Yang, obviously, we wrote off last year when that game at New St Mirren Park, where he was just consistently offside to an extent that didn't make sense for a professional footballer. And I don't think anyone has too much faith in those two to come on and change a game. Hopefully today, being a home game, I don't see those two really contributing unless it's already 3 goals of a difference. So I won't be judging them much today. Might be proven wrong. We might be 1 each going into the last 5 minutes and Palma scores a winner, as he did a couple of times last year. But it feels like that's a long way away. That was a long time ago, and it's not anywhere near at the moment.
I'd love it. I would love for Yang or Palma or both of them to step up so that when we look at that bench, we think, you know what, that's a really strong bench. We've got game changers on that bench. I'm just not feeling that at this moment in time. And we're early in the season. We absolutely are early in the season. But as October, very, very quickly moves into November, and before it's a January transfer window, these are the people I think that you're looking at. You're looking at Nawrocki and saying, right, do we need to move him on and bring in another centre-half? You're looking at the wingers who haven't done a great deal in the first half of the season thus far and saying, well, maybe we need another winger. Maybe we need to dip our toes back into the transfer market and find another winger who potentially could play both sides. Now, loads of chat about Aberdeen this season, and I think it's justified. They've done really, really well. And I don't think, even if we were, and there's a lot of confidence in the comment section coming through, Celtic 3, Aberdeen 0, says Monty, Kyogo 2 and Engels, Paul McLean 3-2 Celtic. There's a lot of confidence. There's 4-0s, there's 5-0s, there's a 5-0 here from Feed the Bear. Even if we were to win comfortably today, I don't think, that's it, all this chat about Aberdeen, that's over. They've made great strides regardless, Sean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to take your point, which is excellent, and I'm going to try and turn it around by saying when we went to play Dortmund, we won every game so far this season. Dortmund did not have any respect for our winning records. They put us to the swords quite comfortably, quite handily. They showed their quality, and I hope that we do that today to Aberdeen. I hope we Dortmund Aberdeen today.
Oh yeah, I'm going to use that in the future. We're going to Dortmund them. I remember some
verb.
I know, absolutely. I remember quite a lot of high scoring games against Aberdeen at home in particular. The match where John Barnes was in charge, and we had like a forward 5. We had Mark Viduka, Eyal Berkovic, Lubo Moravcik, Henrik Larsson. There was somebody else in there. It was just scary how many creative, forward-thinking players. I think we won the game 5 or 6-0. I was at the 9-0 game Paddy McCourt scored that day. I was at the 9-0 game as well, where we just tore them to shreds. I'd love to see it today, but my prediction is 2-1. Remind the viewers, if they didn't hear you during the week, Sean, how do you think it's going to go today?
I have predicted 3-1. To add a little bit more flab to that, I'm thinking 2-1 late in the contest, and we'll get a third on the counter-attack to add a little bit of gloss. I think it'll be close to the end, but 3-1 in the end.
Let's hope you're right. Let's go and join the action. Join Sean and I at halftime. And please let us know what you think of all the talking points today in the comment section. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And join us at halftime for a Celtic State of Mind.